this episode of Without a Shadow of a Doubt, we're going to highlight two former mayors of Stockton that held office before current mayor of Stockton, Kevin Lincoln, a relative unknown who rose to challenge Michael Tubbs in the election of 2020 and ultimately won. This was a surprise to everyone except the citizens of Stockton, many of whom had grown tired of Mayor Tubbs utilizing his position in a way that was like and unlike mayors of the past. It was almost as if Stockton was intended as a footstool. Well, that's what Michael Tubbs' mother posted online for all to see anyway. It was moves like this one and others that proved to be the downfall of Michael Tubbs. People in the community either felt one of two ways. He was corrupt for himself and stealing from the community, or he is a superstar in the making and we are all lucky to have him, to support him, to follow his lead, no matter where it took us. What many did not acknowledge was the succession of single-term mayors in Stockton and how, amongst other things, this was a major obstacle to ensuring consistency and results as Stockton worked to exit the post-depression effects from the 2008 landscape, a landscape that caused a bankruptcy that Anthony R. Silva, a former one-term mayor of Stockton, who also served as the president of the Stockton Unified School District and CEO of the now defunct Boys and Girls Club of Stockton, it was something that he had to deal with. He was the mayor of Stockton who helped to navigate the city out from that depression into a balanced budget and opportunities to make investments in the community. While his mayorship, business work, and personal issues have been documented to a great extent, many within the Stockton community speak just as highly of him as if none of it had ever happened. In Stockton, there is a mentality that exists. Many call it crabs in a barrel, but in reality, I don't believe in that. It isn't that we hate on each other and pull each other back. It isn't that we wish for others to fail so that we can prevail. The simple truth in Stockton is that we all want the best for our city, our families, and our children. We all just disagree about the necessary steps to achieving that goal together. And it doesn't help to have outside influences work with members of our community to misinform, distract, and induce apathy. In Stockton, there is such an intuitive knowing that goes beyond the deeds of a man or woman into the essence of who they truly are. The loyalty, support, and at times, willful ignorance of Stockton is astounding, worth honoring, and it is very contradictory. Like all things that involve humans, there's more than meets the eye when it comes to the legacy of Anthony R. Silva, no matter how corrupt, hypocritical, and inconsistent as that may seem. However, the same can be said for Michael Tubbs. In many ways, these two mayors are mirror reflections of each other. The comparisons are simple, undeniable, and a product of the duality that we often choose to believe in. Black and white, old and young, Republican and Democrat, liberal and conservative, rich and poor, good and evil, community versus special interest. Let's take a look at a few of the major storylines of the Silva rise, regime, and some of the associated partnerships. Then we'll do the same with rising Democratic star Michael D. Tubbs in hopes of understanding with more clarity. Do these two wings help the same bird to take flight?
Stockton has a new mayor this morning. Residents have gone through bankruptcy and record homicide rates, and now they have voted for a change.
They have elected Boys and Girls Club President Anthony Silva, 58-42%. He is the new mayor. Silva won by more than 8,000 votes.
KCR3's Leticia Daz joining us now live in Stockton with reaction.
Well, good morning. A record number of voters turned out for this election, and they spoke loud and clear. They are definitely ready for a change. The 38-year-old Anthony Silva is a single father, and he's also the president of the Boys and Girls Club, who says he understands struggling families. He has vowed not to take a paycheck until Stockton gets its finances back on track and gets more police on the streets. Voters have expressed frustration because Stockton has set a record for having the most murders ever. So far, there have been 60 this year. Silva has not given a victory speech yet, but says he's ready to take on the challenge of mayor and restore the police force in this crime-plagued city. In the meantime, this morning, votes are still being counted, and Mayor Ann Johnston is not ready to concede this race.
Well, Stockton's embattled mayor is once again making headlines this morning, this time for reportedly changing his mind on a campaign promise.
KCR3's Mike DeSalle joining us live in the newsroom. So what's behind the decision?
Well, interesting. Remember back during his campaign, Anthony Silva said if elected mayor of Stockton, he would not take a city salary until the city had a balanced budget and it had more police officers on the street. Well, now, Silva told the Stockton newspaper that just months after becoming mayor, he will begin drawing his $100,000 a year plus salary. Furthermore, he told the newspaper he's being forced to do it by the city attorney after the city attorney told him he'd likely have to pay taxes on that money anyway. This change of heart on a campaign promise comes as the mayor continues to defend himself against an investigation of sexual battery and a mass email he says attacks his character.
A controversial meeting in Stockton involving a key to the city given to God by the city's mayor and an atheist group who's threatening to sue. KCRA3's Dana Griffin's live in Stockton tonight with more. Dana?
Kelly, we're at the Christian Life Center, a place two groups say they don't feel welcome. The Stockton area atheist group and the LGBT community say they both asked the mayor to move tonight's meeting to a different location, but the mayor has refused and says that he cannot please everyone. Now, the atheist group has threatened to file a lawsuit if the mayor continues to include the church with city business. Mayor Anthony Silva has recently held a 12-hour prayer service and given a key to the city to God.
How are you doing, Mayor Silva?
I'm hanging in there.
Stockton Mayor Anthony Silva setting the tone as he begins his first court appearance as a criminal defendant. The 41-year-old quickly appearing at the Amador County Superior Court following his arrest at Silver Lake Campground on August 4th.
How do you wish to proceed?
Enter a not guilty plea, Your Honor.
Facing charges surrounding the recording of minors at his Silver Lake Youth Summer Camp last summer.
Unlike other politicians, I say that I am human. I am far, far from perfect, but those things are a far, far cry from any sort of criminal activity.
Yep, Stockton's mayor declared himself the city's first black mayor last night during a mayoral debate. But as you know, Anthony Silva is white. And today he stands by that statement. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sam Shane.
And I'm Adrienne Moore. So how does the African-American community feel about the mayor's remark? CBS 13's Lee Martinez is in Stockton tonight getting answers.
I'm not African-American, but I'm pretty darn close.
Mayor Anthony Silva made the statement during Thursday's debate, hosted by Stockton's NAACP and Black Women Organized for Political Action. Our camera had stopped rolling when candidate Councilman Michael Tubbs said he was surprised the diverse city never had a black mayor. That's when Mayor Silva disagreed.
Honestly, I think he was joking, so I wasn't really offended. I was more offended in that most of the policies he's proposing, whether it's a sagging ordinance to get cops to police young men and how they wear their pants as if they don't have more important things to do. To me, that's more offensive.
Silva offered this explanation on his comment.
Last 15 years, I've been mentoring numerous African-American youth in South and East Stockton, and each and every summer I hire African-American lifeguards. If you ask folks around town, African-American leaders, they're going to tell you that, hey, the mayor, he works with African-Americans.
We wanted to know, what does Stockton's African-American community think about the mayor's comment?
He is a black mayor. I don't care what nobody say, he is a black mayor.
He's done a lot for the African-American community. He's been on the forefront. He deals with African-Americans on a daily basis.
And Mayor Silva is also getting support from a former council member who's also a leader in the African-American community.
Anthony has done more for black candidates and black people in general on making appointments to people of color than anybody we ever had.
And the leader of the Black Women Organized for Political Action says she was not offended by the mayor's comment, and she's known him to work well with the African-American organizations in the Stockton area.
Michael Tubbs says the people in Stockton have spoken. He won the election with a 40% point victory. He is now the first black mayor in Stockton, and the 26-year-old Stanford grad is also the youngest person to hold the office.
We've had a huge coalition of community support, and the vote title proves it.
The city is good. The state of the city is that we have improved. I'm familiar with most of the activities that are going on, and we're moving in a very positive role, in a positive way, and our image across America has improved tremendously, and I'm looking forward to more high-paying jobs coming to Stockton.
Very proud of the direction that I see our city moving, and I just hope that all of the city council members are on board with our mayor, who's doing a fabulous job. We have never had in our history as much progress as we see today. So we're here to support our mayor and the city council, and we just want everyone moving in the same direction.
I think we're doing a lot better, being able to recover from our bankruptcy that we had.
For the second time this month, people protesting police violence are calling for greater transparency were kicked out of a Stockton City Council meeting.
I didn't sign up to run for mayor, so I got armed guards at my council meetings. It's ridiculous.
Several speakers, including mothers of 2 men killed by law enforcement, came to speak during the public comment portion of the council meeting.
They're in pain because some of their children have been killed, and they are wanting answers.
But when one activist wanted to speak on sanctuary cities, Mayor Tubbs told him to wait and to speak on the topic when the issue came up later on the agenda. The speaker refused, so Mayor Tubbs called a recess. That's when the crowd started to chant in protest, forcing a response from police. The city says it was necessary to protect those in attendance.
It wasn't a particularly good meeting to attend, and it didn't really feel safe, and so it was a little intimidating.
But as the cops asked people to leave, the confrontation escalated, and that's raising concerns with groups like the NAACP. They say the community has the right to get answers on fatal police shootings. The NAACP admits that some in attendance were disruptive, yet they say the police seemed ready for a fight.
I don't like it when the police come in wearing riot masks and all of this kind of stuff, because I believe that escalates the problem.
This may all seem hypocritical and counterintuitive, but that is the nature of Stockton. On one hand, we watch as young minorities in Stockton, at the time until this day, that not only associate with former Mayor Silva, they praise him as a member of the black community. Others see Michael Tubbs as the true first black mayor of Stockton and the answer to prayers. But in truth, both men are just men. They are fathers, they're partners, and like many of us, they are flawed. They are inconsistent, and this world doesn't place much value and make many allowances for the ills of men. I mention all this to offer a perspective that is revealing itself within this work. As a member of the community we call Stockton, we find ourselves at a crossroads where we continue to await a savior in the form of a man in the image of the imperfect representatives that we so often choose, or will we all begin to take responsibility, to ask more questions, advocate for our needs and wants, and make honest efforts to better support our community, in good faith and in the spirit of Thanksgiving? Or will we continue this slippery slope that we've walked down so many times before? Whether you champion former Mayor Tubbs or former Mayor Silva, there are some issues that belong to Stockton no matter who is in office. We have watched both wings work to propel this community this bird, and yet this approach proves to only support in very particular situations and setups for very particular people and affiliations. We have an opportunity to cast our judgments and bring closure to our community and our individual selves, as we have all been impacted from big to small. Our lives have changed and has revolved in appearances around just 2 men, Michael Tubbs and Anthony Silva. On our next episode, we're going to focus solely on Michael Tubbs, his team, and the fruits of their labor during his time as mayor. Interestingly enough, Mayor Tubbs' influence was not only national, but it spanned from economics, politics, and city governance into education and social engineering. The defund police movement and pushes for charter school reform and advocacy in Stockton, California, contributed heavily to the rise of Michael Tubbs nationally, while locally, it left a stain on his legacy. In the following episode and series finale, we will dive into the murky waters of former Mayor Anthony Silva's past in order to allow for both perspectives to be seen while you make your judgment. Many of the actions of Silva, politically and economically, may have unconsciously set the table for Michael Tubbs and his team, a table that neither man understood in full. Still, the responsibilities of leadership and the price of fame can be great and terrible. And let us not forget about the ever-present danger of sharks in the water.
I think anybody who ever does schoolwork has to be either open to uncertainty as well as the sort of art of possibility. You know, in July, none of us had any idea that the Clinton administration was going to call and ask if they could sign a piece of charter legislation into law in San Carlos School District, where charter number 1 was. And lo and behold, you fast forward to September the 17th, and there comes President Clinton, the First Lady, Senator Boxer, you name an elected California Dem dignitary, and they were in the House. And only 250 people were allowed in this small multi-use room because the media had set up platforms to be able to capture this event. It was the president, followed by the First Lady, followed by the president, and then a roundtable conversation about charters. And so they wanted every media, TV station to carry that. So 250 people. I had been versed on the list, looked at the list, and had to vet this for the Secret Service or whatever they needed. And all of a sudden the day comes, and it's a grand and glorious day. The day is over. I am reliving my life as a middle school principal, standing on the stage as the president and First Lady worked the ropes, so to speak, kissed babies, shook hands, and I was glad that it was over. It was thrilling. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, a young man comes up to me and says, hey, I'm not an educator, but I like education, think it's really important. I'm wondering what you think if there'll ever be more than 100 charters in California. And my first reaction is, I don't know who you are. And as a superintendent, I tried to know everyone in town. And I said, how'd you get here? And he said, well, I just got on the list at the last minute. I made a small contribution to the Democratic Party. And that was about it. I didn't even ask him his name, but responded to his question that I think in 1997, California had 133 charters capped, was never going anywhere. The legislature was just never going to, consider more than 100. So he said, would you like to have lunch? So a couple weeks later, I said, sure, I'd have lunch. And the two of us met down in Menlo Park. And he described himself as an entrepreneur, a tech entrepreneur, which, I've been in Silicon Valley long enough to know that those creatures exist.
See you on our next episode of Without a Shadow of a Doubt.